Hello students, this is Nitya Priya. We see ADO.NET object model now. Okay, so let me explain you the concepts of ADO.NET object model one by one neatly. And these are the contents. First we see the object model of ADO.NET. Then we see the managed providers. Then the example program. Then the output of the program. Then about the dataset class. Okay, so ADO.NET object model is, I already told you the difference between ADO and ADO.NET. We have posted a material which states the difference between ADO and ADO.NET. The main difference is in ADO we can use ADO we can use in non.NET programming languages. For example, VB. Okay, in Visual Basic, for accessing data from MS Access, we can use ADO. But on .NET platform, we cannot use ADO. Instead, we can use ADO.NET. Okay, right. So ADO.NET enhances, it encourages multiple programming languages. Okay, which is exclusively created for the .NET framework programming languages. Right. So it has two levels. One is connected layer, another one is disconnected layer. First, at this time itself, you should understand the difference between connected and disconnected layers. Connected layer is we create a database in a particular data source. For example, SQL or Microsoft Access. In any data source, you create your table. Okay, and you're connecting it with your front end .NET. For example, Visual Basic .NET. Okay, so your front end is Visual Basic .NET, your back end is MS Access. Okay, you create MS Access table and you keep it open and you connect it with the Microsoft .NET programming language, for example VB.NET. So this is called as, when both backend and front end are open, this is called as connected layer. Okay, side by side you are creating your database and the database you are creating is accessible to the .NET programming language. This is connected layer. Okay, so both are opened. Disconnected layer is the table is created in some point of time, for example before 1 month or before 1 year also, and it is closed now. Okay, now you are still able to access the database that you have created before 1 year on your front end VB.NET. Okay, so this is called as disconnected layer. That is, the database is closed and your front end application is opened. Even if the database is closed, you are still able to access the data of the database on your front end VB.NET. Okay, so this is called as disconnected layer. In connected layer, both front end and back end are open, and in disconnected layer, your back end is closed and your front end is active. Okay, so that is called as that's about the two layers. Then about providers. For note's sake, I put all these things. You have to understand there are only two providers for .NET. Okay, one is SQL client, another one is OLEDB. Okay, SQL client is when you create database on SQL server, you will use the provider SQL client. And OLEDB is if you create your database on MS Access, you will use the provider OLEDB. Okay, when you see the coding, you will understand, right? And these are the ADO.NET classes. So for every class, when we do programming, we'll create objects. For example, for Oledb connection, we'll create an object con. For Oledb command, we'll create an object CMD. Okay, for adapter, we'll create an object ADB. So these are all the important classes of ADO.NET. What is OLEDB connection? Connection is the class which is used by the user to create a connection object, to create a connection with the data source. Okay, then OLEDB command. This OLEDB command class is to execute the SQL queries on the database. You know, select query, insert query, create query, update query. Okay, to execute all the SQL queries, we'll use the class OLDB command. Okay, and OLDB data reader. Data reader is nothing but it is to read from the top to bottom of the table of the data set. Okay, right from the first record till the last record will read through this OLDB data reader, and this is a forward only class. Okay, we can go only forward. From 1 we can move on to 2, then to 3, then to 4. We cannot go back from 4 to 3. Okay, so that is data reader. Then data adapter. Data adapter is a class which locates the data on the database on the data control. Okay, we'll study what data controls are later. Okay, right. Data control is nothing but a control which is used to expose the database data on the front end application. Okay, in many ways we can display the records of the table of the backend data. Okay, we can display the data in grids, we can display the data as list. Okay, so for everything there are separate controls. In grids we have grid view. For displaying it as a list we have list view. Okay, for displaying it as a tree with relations we have tree view. Okay, so there are different data controls. Okay, so data adapter is the class which keeps or which locates the backend data on the data control, on the particular data control we are using currently. Okay, so data adapter. Then OLDB error. If any error occurs in OLDB command, the error will be displayed through the class OLDB error. Okay, so as I said, there are two providers for ADO.NET in disconnected layer, namely the SQL client and OLDB. Okay, right. So we use SQL client in the form of system.data.sql client. So SQL client will be located on the namespace system.data.sql client. If OLEDB, we can use it as system.data.oledb. That's it. And these are the classes of SQL server: SQL connection, SQL command, SQL data adapter, and SQL error. Right? So this is the example program. When you see this program, you'll nicely understand the concepts we have discussed so far. So before seeing the program, we'll see the output. See, this is the output we'll be getting. We have created a table, namely student. Okay, so student is the table we have created, and then in the student table we have 4 fields, namely register number, name, course, and department. So we have inserted 5 records from 1001 to 1005. Okay, so this table has been created in a database. Okay, how we are getting that database table to the front-end .NET application is the concept. Okay, so which program is used to bring the database data onto the front-end application? So that is the coding we are going to see here. See, we are importing is normally we use import statement in Java, right? Import java.io.star, we'll use that. So what is that? We are importing a package, IO package, inside a Java program. So when we import IO package, generally we can use the read and write statements. Okay, so print and readln statements in Java. So the same way we're using the imports command in .NET also. So first we import system.java. So system.java is the package we are importing exclusively for database programs. Okay, so we have system.data. Then here the provider is OLEDB. So we use we give imports system.data.oledb. We are using imports, not import. Okay, it is imports, right? So I hope you understand that. Then come down to the third line. It is partial class. That will be created in .NET itself. Okay, no need to explain that. So partial class will be created. It is a built-in coding. Then we create objects for all the OLEDB classes. See, OLEDB connection, we create an object con, and we say dim con as OLEDB connection. Okay, then OLEDB command, we create an object CMD. Then for adapter, we are creating the object ADP. Then data set, we create an object DS. Only for the disconnected layer of connection, we use data set. Okay, for connected layers, we'll use record set. For disconnected layers, we'll use data set. So you have to understand the difference. So this is about the 4 objects, right? Then we have to connect the database to the data control, right? So we create the connection query, OLEDB connection, con equals, con is the object of OLEDB connection. Okay, see the above coding. So con equals new OLEDB connection, or this is the coding within brackets, is the coding which has to be exactly typed. Okay, it's typed, it should be typed as it is. Provider equals Microsoft dot jet.oledb.4.0. Then data source equals the database name with the path. Okay, now the database is db5, which has been created in the drive U. Okay, so it is u:/db5.mdb. .mdb is the extension given for Microsoft Access. Okay, so it is a Access database, right? So we connect, then con.open. That connection is opened, right? So now we bring the database to the data control. Okay, here we are using grid view. You saw it, right? So this is grid view. This will be in squares, right? So this particular control is called as grid view, right? So for this grid view, we are writing the coding. The same we give con equals new OLDB connection and so on. Then con.open. To get it displayed, we'll execute the query select, right? So we give cmd equals, cmd is the object of OLDB command. You see the coding. Okay, cmd equals new OLDB command of select staff from student, comma, con is the connection object, right? So to execute this query, we give execute non-query. So what's the object to execute it? CMD. CMD is the command object, OLDB command object. So CMD dot execute non-query. Then ADP. ADP is the adapter object. ADP equals new OLDB data adapter of which to execute the select query. So where is the select query? It is in CMD. So CMD we pass as the parameter. Okay, right. So we have to fill the database. We have to fill the data on the data control. So we give adp.fill of ds. ds is what? Data set object. Okay, so ds comma db5, the database name. Then gridview1 dot data source equals ds. ds is the data source. Gridview1 is the data control. Okay, right. Then data bind we give. So these are the set of coding which has to be given as it is. When we execute this, we'll get this type of output. See, you have to understand one thing. The table student is inside db5, the database db5, which is created in U drive. Okay, so it is u:/db5/student. Okay, so that student table we are getting displayed on our .NET screen, and this is your output screen, right? Okay, now data set. What is data set? Data set is the it is the object of tables. Okay, so to display tables, we use the object data set, and data set is the built-in class of .NET. Okay, so this data set consists of tables, columns, relations, constraints, and rows. Okay, right. So this is the data set. See, data set has tables and relations. Tables is a collection of table, and relations is a collection of relation. Relation is also table, but in some programming languages it is referred as relation. Table is normally a table, set of rows and columns, right? So table is a collection of rows, a collection of columns, a collection of constraints. Okay, we give primary key, foreign key, like, right? So that they are called as constraints, conditions, right? So column is consisting of set of columns, and rows are consisting of set of rows, and constraints are the set of constraints. Then the data set object model consists of columns and rows, and these are the classes of the data set classes of data set classes of ADO.NET: data set, data adapter, data table, data column, data row, right? So unlike record set, which is used on ADO, data sets keep track of the relationship between tables. Okay, if there are any relationship between two tables, if any, that also this data set will manage, right? And that's all about now. So here we have seen the entire thing, I think the entire thing about ADO.NET. ADO.NET basics we have seen. Then we saw the object model of ADO.NET. Then we saw the two layers, connected layer and disconnected layer. Then we saw the two managed providers that are OLEDB and SQL client, and how they can be used: system.data.oledb and system.data.sql client. Okay, and we saw an example program along with its output. Then after that we saw about data set. Okay, I hope you understand this video. Thank you.